Hello and welcome to Called Bank Sports. We are going to be very careful about jinxing the Jazz this episode. First episode of the season, we came out and said, well, oh, this is awesome, but they can't keep this up. And then they proceeded to do the opposite of that. Second podcast of the season, we came in and said, oh, this is awesome, and they can keep it up. And then the Jazz proceeded to lose three straight. However, they were able to beat Phoenix this tonight. So we might just, walk away and just say, oh, the Jazz are terrible, just to ensure that, for the next week and a half over the holiday break, that they're doing a lot better than they've been doing this previous week.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's as soon as the team has expectations, they can't perform well anymore. So I think maybe we need to take a step back and realize that this team has already outperformed its expectations. So let's continue to have kind of a carefree, fun season, and really whatever the Jazz do, we can appreciate at this point. Like that's because I don't know if all Jazz fans felt this. I know I felt this during the last two seasons, where like every game was a little stressful because you knew the expectations, you knew they were good enough to beat any team in the league, and so it was a disappointment when they fell short. So yeah, I've enjoyed it so far up until that 3-game losing streak where they outperformed it. But now that they have expectations, I don't know. Do we need to pull those back, or are they going to continue to shock us?
Yeah, and I totally get that vibe, right? Where, it was so exciting to see them doing well, and then they go and lose 3 games, which wasn't even that terrible, right? Like, if they go out and they beat Portland tomorrow, then they're number 1 in the West again. They have a leg up on there, and it's been nice to have played the Grizzlies a couple times and beat them, but they haven't been healthy. Again, the Jazz pick up. I can't talk right now. The Jazz beat the Suns tonight, but they're not healthy, and so it's just kind of an interesting kind of vibe right now with the team where they're winning. They have one of the hardest schedules in the league. I think that they've currently played the most games in the league at 17. There definitely are some more teams at 16. This week has been a tiny bit slower for Utah, but they've been just, being run into the ground. And after only getting 2 games in a row at home, they're going to have to fly and play in Portland tomorrow on the second night of a back-to-back. So the Jazz, bit the bullet for the league during scheduling. More likely than not, they gave them a harder schedule because they didn't think they would be nearly as good. And that's going to really hurt the Jazz this year, unless they decide to, do a fire sale, which is still up in the air, and try to get a higher chance at a good lottery pick.
Yeah, and the good news, though, is if they want to make a run at the playoffs, which the players and coaching staff, that's what they're trying to do. You never know what the front office wants to do. They're not always on the same page there. And I would never want to have a front office that tells the coach to intentionally lose. I don't think that's ever a good situation. But they're kind of like, as you mentioned, they had a tough start to the season, which means their second half is going to look, and we're not near the halfway point, but once you start looking at the second half of the season, there's going to be longer stretches of fairly easy games. The interesting thing, though, is it feels like so far, and this isn't a great track record so far, but the Jazz kind of feel like one of those teams where they beat the good teams and lose to the bad teams. And like they've won a lot of games so far, so I don't want to give them that label, but it feels like they're that kind of team, which is kind of if you're tanking, which I don't know what the Jazz are doing right now when they're one of the best teams in the West. But when you're tanking, that's kind of what you want to do. You want to have the fun games where fans come out to see the best teams in the league, and you want to go beat all the stars, and then lose all the little ones of all the bad teams against like the Magic, the Hornets, the teams that are kind of in the bottom of the race, and hopefully push yourself down further against them. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. It would be really interesting. The Jazz come out and have one of the toughest first stretches of the season, do great, and then just lose out against all the bad talent. That'd be one of the most bizarre seasons we've seen.
Well, really, I mean, the only two losses this year that I've been super disappointed about have been against the Wizards, without Bradley Beal, and against New York here at home. When you look at the other ones, the first loss against Houston, the Jazz had just played 3 games in 3 different arenas before that, so you're going in on what's essentially a 4-game road trip, even though one of those games was at home. The previous 2 games against the Timberwolves and against the Pelicans were both went to overtime. So yeah, you're tired. It isn't the best team in the league by any means, but it's a loss that you can live with. Next loss against Denver a couple games later, you blew Denver out. You're now playing them at home. Um, you're now playing them in Denver. They're a really good team. They're going to want to win. Awesome. Next loss against the Dallas Mavericks. Yes, the Jazz could have won that game. It was a bit disappointing, but overall, you're playing Luka, one of the best players in the league right now, on the road, and things like that are going to happen. And then you get the Washington loss, which sucks. The 76ers lost, which was really painful, but it's the second night of a back-to-back, and you're playing Joel Embiid, and he just has an absolutely insane night. And then New York. So you look at it, and yeah, the Jazz have lost some games. They've lost 3 disappointing. They've lost 2 disappointing ones, but other than that, letting the last the 3-game losing streak taint the season is just really, cutting off your nose to spite your face. There's no reason right now to think that that's anything indicative of what this team is, other than reminding us that no, this team is not going to go 74-8 and win a title to become the best team in league history. But I
imagine
that's probably
that
a
run,
good
though.
reminder to
They
have.
lose 2 more games all year.
Two more games all year, break that record, and then are able to do what Steph Curry couldn't and go through the playoffs and actually pull it out. That would be impressive. That would be so nice to finally get, a championship as a Jazz fan. But I have a hard time seeing that one actually happen.
If that happens, there would immediately be 30 documentaries about this team. A team that comes into the season with 0 expectations and becomes the best team in NBA history.
After the painful experience that was The Last Dance, I would be so thrilled to have all of those documentaries. Have something about the Jazz, finally winning instead of just watching something about Michael Jordan and his just absolute greatness that involved him beating John Stockton and Karl Malone in back-to-back years.
One thing that because last week we talked a lot about Markkanen and how he's kind of breaking out, and I think he's definitely still. It's way too early to really have all-star conversations, but he has to be in the early conversations right now. Everyone's talking about him as a name in the most improved player conversation. I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about what you think, who you think he is as a player now, and kind of what you think his potential is, because we saw games like tonight where they beat the Suns and he puts up 30 plus points.
38 career high, just bonkers.
Crazy, awesome game. And then you see his averages, which this is through 16 games, 21 points per game, 8 rebounds a game, 2 assists, a block. Let's see if I can see shooting splits, because those do matter. He's shooting over 50% from the field and about 35% from 3. And so 3 is probably right around average, maybe slightly above average, but shooting over 50% when he's scoring 21 points a game is awesome. But still, 21-8, you don't see that as the guy on a championship team. And so I'm realizing he's just had breaking out. So where do you see his trajectory going? Do you think this is what we can expect from Lauri Markkanen? He's kind of a 2010 kind of guy, and that's what we can expect. You want to build with that, but not necessarily around it? Or do you think this is just another step for him to move higher next year or throughout the rest of the season? There's still a lot of season to go.
There's still a lot of season to go. I mean, obviously, I think the more realistic ceiling for him, while still not being that realistic, is probably the 3rd guy on a championship team. Someone who you can put in the corner and can be deadly. Someone who, if you need to, play point guard for a bit, can do that. But he's obviously not, a Kevin Durant or Kawhi Leonard level player at this point. He's not LeBron James, he's not Jason Tatum, but he's not Luka Doncic. I'm sure there's someone I've offended with these five, but he definitely right now still has just so much room to improve. Like he hasn't really been given a good shot to grow currently, and that's I think why he's doing so well and why he's going to I mean, right now, win most improved player is just he's being given an opportunity to grow and being given an opportunity to flourish in a healthy system with a really good coach. So, yes, would I absolutely love to see Markkanen, continue to develop and end up being Kevin Durant 2.0 or even Kevin Durant version, zero point 0.9, like go back a bit, but if he can get 75% of the way there, that's going to be amazing for Utah. I don't think that'll happen, but I don't want to sell him short. Like he's still young. He's still got time to improve and develop. And I would love to see him become something that the Jazz could just build around in the future. And that really what you ended up getting from the Donovan Mitchell trade was your next superstar piece. I just think that that's really optimistic.
Yeah, and he's kind of at a crossroads. I'm not sure which direction he will go. Because I was thinking of an argument like for and against, and I kind of came up with the same argument where he's on a team where I'm looking at the Jazz roster and there's no one taking a lot of shots. Like Jordan Clarkson is leading the team with 15.4 shots a game. Markkanen is a fifth of a shot behind him with 15.2. And so that's not a ton of shots for anyone on the team. The Jazz do have high volume shooters on their team. It's just other than Clarkson, none of them are getting tons of minutes. You have Beasley with 10 shots a game, Sexton with a little bit less than 10 shots a game. And then Conley's there at 9 shots a game, but he's getting a lot of minutes. So I don't know if it's I don't know if Markkanen's stats are inflated just because the volume shooters, there's no really guy to take the shots, or if they're kind of deflated because even though there's no one guy, there's a lot of guys who like to throw shots up, even though they're not getting tons of numbers. So I'd be curious. He's only taking 15 shots a game. I'd be curious to see what his numbers start looking like if he starts taking 20, 21, 22. And I don't think that works within this offense, but I think it'd be an interesting maybe in a year or two, depending on what the Jazz roster looks like, you may see that happening. I don't think that'd be a great spot for the Jazz to be in if Markkanen's the guy taking 22 shots a game, but his numbers could look way better. He could be the 25 and 10 guy instead of the 20 and 8 guy.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, this comparison definitely falls flat in some ways, but I hate being devil's advocate here. But is a good comp for Lauri Markkanen, Julius Randle? You get a new coach coming in, breathing life into an organization. They're catching some heat and just has an absolutely amazing year, goes and wins most improved. And then, the next year just absolutely falls off. Now, you brought up usage rates, and I'm pretty sure Julius Randle had a much higher usage rate than Lauri does right now. But there is definitely, we've seen that in the past where we've seen a player have a really good year, just, the stars align. And then after that, they're just dead weight that the team is trying to move, but just can't get anything done with.
Yeah, I think that's a great comparison. And I think that's something the Jazz should keep in mind that the Knicks kind of saw Randall as, he's the guy. He's going to win an MVP someday. Is how I know some Knicks fans thought that. I don't know if a majority of them did.
I mean,
I think the front office had a lot of trust behind him. But
yeah.
The Jazz probably shouldn't put that much trust in Markkanen. If they do and he proves us wrong, great. But I don't think he's going to be that guy if the goal is a championship. And knowing Danny Ainge, he may be traded 1-2 years down the road because they've just inflated his trade value. And you may see like Celtics did that with Isaiah Thomas, got Kyrie Irving out of it. what are the Jazz going to do with Market? And he may be actually someone on the trade block if a star becomes available.
Yeah. And thankfully for the Jazz, they've still, I believe, got Markkanen under contract for 2 more seasons after this. The big Julius Randle issue was he did all of that on a contract year.
Well,
and so someone was going to pay him. Yeah. Like, you just, I mean, like Aaron Judge, could go on and be the worst baseball player, in the history of the league, right? In the history of the league after this season. But after, the season he just put up, he's about to get paid bank for the next 10 years, regardless of what he does in the future. Like, there is an
baseball's great because you get the 10-year, 15-year contract.
He's going to make, 10, like it's going to be 10 years and then like 350 million. And for everyone who just does not care about baseball, I apologize. But like, there's a reason why you want to perform right before you get paid. And so like, there are definitely some Jazz players who have contract years who want to, be successful because of that. But right now, I mean, Lowry, the Jazz thankfully have him locked up for a few more years. So he's not going to be asking for some crazy max contract this upcoming offseason.
Thankfully, that'd be a rough situation for the Jazz at this point.
It would actually be an interesting thought exercise, maybe in a few weeks to go through and say, so if the Jazz don't trade anyone, what are they doing over the offseason? Look at who has contracts coming up. Look at and just kind of see, is this guy going to be a piece for the long term, or is it someone you're just going to have had a great year with and let walk?
Yeah, that'd be interesting to look at, because I feel like this team, as fun as they are already, Jazz fans don't get too attached to it because
it's hard.
This roster is not going to be the same next year. It's going to be completely different when they have a little bit of strategy to piece it together, rather than just taking whatever pieces are thrown in trades, which obviously was more strategic than that. But you only have so much control when you're working with a one-on-one trade with another team.
Yeah. Well, there's just still some really interesting stuff about the offseason. I can't remember if I mentioned this, but I remember the leaks coming out after the Jazz traded Donovan to the Cavs, and the Knicks said, hey, Jazz never gave us a chance to match, which blew me away. But then you see Lauri Markkanen, playing this year, and you're like, maybe Danny Ainge knew what he was doing by not letting the Knicks have a chance to match. And then the Bojan Bogdanovic trade just looked so wacky. Like, really, no first-round picks? But then Kelly Olynyk has just meshed so well with this team. So I mean, obviously, the beauty of working in a black box is if things work out, then you can just take the credit. I mean, if they don't work out, you have to take the blame. But Danny Ainge could be sitting there just thinking, dang, I didn't expect any of this to happen. But he can keep his mouth shut and just, add a few more check marks to his best GM of all time.
And he already took the blame preemptively. Everyone was hating on him throughout the summer.
Seriously.
So I'm sure at this point he's just now we don't even get great draft position. Dang it! I already took the blame for this.
I just wanted Victor, man. Yeah. So I'd be really interested. I know Danny Ainge will never say anything about this subject, but I would love to be a fly on a wall in some of his meetings with Zanuck and with Ryan Smith, just to kind of get a vibe with what's going on. So
I never know what they're doing. They're weird.
Hey, so I think we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. I forgot to mention at the top, but we still do have our 500 subscriber giveaway going. We will also be adding in entries if you didn't comment in the last video. If you comment in this one, we'll throw you in. Go watch the last video as well, just to kind of see what we're giving away there. You have a chance at picking between a couple of shirts or picking a hat. So thank you guys so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. And let us know in the comments, are the Jazz going to beat the Trailblazers? Are they going to, stay number one in the West, or is this just something we should be happy with while it lasts? So, thanks again, and go Jazz!